myself on mute as I was getting ready to come in and announce the fact that we will now have a round table of a number of hosts that participated in today's presentation. And at this point, I will make the blatant self-promotional plug that my name is Gary Hendershot. All my material is out there as Smart Scarecrow. All my material is available from smartscarecrow.com, and I don't need to say another word, so I'll just go ahead and hand it over to Karen and let her introduce our august panel for tonight's roundtable.
Well, Gary, first I want to say thank you so very much, because you've been at the helm, I think, since about 10:30 today, and that's a long day. I'm hearing feedback. Somebody must be listening on the other page. If you are one of the guests right now who joined us for the round table and you're listening in another page, please close that page so that we don't have the feedback. And thank you all so very, very much for participating, because the real goal behind United We Strike is to support each other and small businesses, but to completely drop out our money and as much of ourselves as we can from the big box, multinational, multi-global corporations who are eviscerating us. Monsanto, DuPont, Walmart, those big guys. But support your local neighbors and build up your supplies so that you are prepared with food and water and shelter, because it will affect them when they have no slaves. When we're supporting each other, when they're not making profit, then we have a bargaining chip at the table. But until then, a lot of us are working jobs that are against our own best interest. And again, that's Monsanto. You know, we've got to start connecting where we're compartmentalized and using our greater power. So if we can begin to really affect the bottom line every 15th and drop it out until finally we can bring them to the table, we can also extend from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days and only go forward, never go backward. We all have a reason to strike. We all have a reason to keep our money out. So that's what this is about. And we can bring our individual spin to it. But don't buy from the big multinational corporations or media lies that you don't research. Don't comply by keeping your money in the bank. Take it out on the 15th. You know, leave in what you need to for the month. Don't comply by allowing yourself to be used and compartmentalized. And ask, why are we here and what are we doing? And I'm so happy to have such great people who are joining me today. And I now get the privilege of introducing you to each other. So right now, Dr. Dean Lloyd of Accutone.com. I do not believe that you have had the pleasure yet of meeting Suzanne Purcell of Occupy Corporatism.
No, I have not. Please do tell.
Well, Suzanne, say hello to Dr. Dean Lloyd.
Hello, Dr. Dean. How are you?
If I was any better, they'd have to arrest me.
Oh, no, let's keep the police out of this.
But please, give me a little background on what it is that you offer first, and then I could talk back about that.
I'm a research journalist, and I've had OccupyCorporatism.com for about a little over a year. And I'm also a radio host on American Freedom Radio. The show is the Region 10 Report, and it's on Thursdays, 1 to 3 Central Pacific Time, 3 to 5 Central Time. And I have I've been writing articles that have gone all over the internet. And I'm very lucky that people read my articles. I'm very grateful that they do. And so I've been covering all the little bits of news that the mainstream is not telling us, and kind of putting together going through all the articles and picking out the information that they're not revealing, and doing research on all the companies and explaining to people how all those same names keep coming up, all the same dots keep connecting. Every time they tell you something, it's a little askew.
Great. What have you been finding recently? Being in the medical profession, I'm constantly being challenged by trying to diagnose things correctly and weeding out the things that can divert the proper treatments. What are you finding currently in your research or in the corporate under the corporate magnifying glass, I guess you could say, that's related directly to this? I was listening earlier. The radiation piece is a big one. Are you finding that there's something that's most recent that hasn't been revealed lately?
Well, they're not telling us, especially with what happened with Fukushima. Almost immediately, the CDC reported that I think 14,000 children were diagnosed with some sort of radiation poisoning. They're not telling us how radiated we are. And it doesn't matter whether or not it's organic. If it's grown outside, and it doesn't matter whether or not you have a covering over it like a greenhouse or a grow tunnel or anything like that, these are nanoparticles. They'll go right through the plastic, right through the glass. It doesn't matter. Unless you're growing it under, 7 feet under in a bunker, our food is being destroyed. And
Okay.
nobody's talking about that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And a little talking point to this. One of the obvious correlations with thyroid cancer and radiation is that most people are iodine deficient and need to realize that their intake of iodine needs to be increased. I've been getting questions like, gee, Dr. Dean, what kind of iodine do I eat? What plants and vegetables? I typically would request that people would have a higher diet of seaweed. The challenge, of course, is that are you getting a clean source? One of the cleanest sources I found has been in the region Nova Scotia, where Dulce seaweed has been harvested. That's an FYI for all of those of you that haven't had seaweed or want to increase their iodine levels through food. That's one way to do it. Please do tell if there's anything that you've discovered as far as local radiation. You mentioned the coast. Does this mean that people are not testing for the food stuff, the imported foods, the fish, and so on?
I would assume so. I don't know specifically, but I do know that in California, they did, I think it was something like 200 tests from an independent source. And they found that it was 250 times the allowable limit in the underlying areas right off the coast. So where they're getting all their fish and where they're getting all their seafood in from California, that food is absolutely full of radiation and yes. And again, nobody's talking about that. And seafood is one of the biggest things if you want to stay healthy. It helps our brain. It helps our bodies. It's food for everything, but they're not talking about it. The mainstream is completely silent. A lot of the alternative is silent on this as well. And Fukushima, since it's already happened and it's already done with, nobody cares to rehash it, except for a few people, which I'm very grateful that they do.
Mm-hmm. Some of the cleanest fish we've been finding is in Norway. This is tested in the nutritional supplements that have high levels of the essential fatty acid components of EPA and DHA being the most important for the brain. And you're probably well aware that fish oils are full-range fatty acids, and they are required for normal brain function. So a lot of the patients that I've had that are getting off of these medications require increases in these essential fatty acids from a clean source of fish. And they've been also doing extracting the fish oils from squid in the oceans, in the Atlantic. So, and these are constantly tested. Fortunately, there's reputable companies that are doing this testing. It is expensive, but looking for heavy metal contaminants and also for radiation. So, Karen, did you have anything that you wanted to ask about this? Because it's basically a problem for all of us.
It's definitely a problem for all of us. But I think what I'd like to do is get a few other people here who are in the roundtable involved in the conversation And first off, I want to thank Tim very much, because we have Tim doing archives, and he's been working at the settings and all that. He's doing a lot behind the scenes. So thank you very much, Tim, for that and for joining us now.
Welcome.
All right. Tim is a man of many words when he writes them down, but not so many when he speaks them. And we also have Lark here in Texas, who's joined us back again for this round table.
Hey, say hey. That's Willie Mays. Say hey, kid.
Wait a minute, I thought that was Fat Albert.
Hey, hey, hey! It might have been him too.
But with the food, definitely, Dean, it's difficult, to know. Actually, is there really a spot on Earth that hasn't been contaminated, or the food supply hasn't been contaminated by now?
Right. This is a very interesting question that nobody seems to have a grasp on. Specifically, using these meters that the Inspector Plus, I think it was one that was talked about before. The Monitor 4 is another one. These are using, you measure X-rays. You can measure if you had cesium or radioactive iodine 131 or any one of these radioactive isotopes. It would pick it up as far as the radioactivity would pick it up. But what I'm oftentimes asking is, if we're not aware of what's in our soils or what's going in our body, if we're not measuring everything or using detectors, what's the best line of defense? And to provide you with a detail, it's best to support our immune system and protect ourselves from radiation. That protocol can be, identified in a general way. If anybody has a question about what that would look like, a suggested radioactive protocol can be sent to you email if you email me, accutone@accutone.com, if that's helpful.
Well, I also think here that what we're being is headed toward more of a consciousness as well, and blessing our food and starting to come together and energetically making a difference, as well as taking other precautionary methods. Because in my opinion, and I don't know everything, but with the genetic manipulation of the crops, with the lowering of standards for organic, it's not really organic, but when I think about my spirit, when I think about seeing a picture of food on a plate before and after it was blessed, before, with Kirlian photography, the food looks like it has a little bit of an aura, but afterwards it's like a little plate of sunshine. And I think that we need to start looking at more than the three-dimensional reality that they want us to look in, and start understanding that thoughts are things, quantum physics exists, and we have ways of healing that we are not being allowed to explore yet.
I'm very glad you mentioned that. Dr. Emoto's work in the realization that the changes in structures of the water form to pleasing structures when you're sending positive energies or loving energies or gratitude and so on. Are either the guests, Tim or Lark, are they at all familiar with some of the local awareness in this area?
Well, I must tell you, where I live, you may not realize it, but I've lived as a hermit for more than 7 years now. But probably only sporadically, unfortunately. I know that food is an important preoccupation of mine, as it has been all my life, because I used to be a chef by trade. So from an early age, I've been consumed by this idea of nourishment and what constituted proper nourishment. But I don't know if you missed my remark in the chat. Eat more sardines was my immediate thought earlier when you mentioned about seafood, because quite honestly, I don't think I would trust any seafood coming out of the Pacific any longer, or the Gulf of Mexico.
Right. What is it? And Tim, do you have anything to say there?
Me? I didn't hear. I heard you say my name.
That's okay.
I just was curious if your local area is aware of the bombardment of the radiation, or if there's anything that's being done in your local area to offset this. So,
well, you know what? Where I live, I'm of course I'm in Northern Virginia, and we're situated on top of marine clay here, and we do have a fairly persistent radon decay indication. So I mean, I'm accustomed to seeing a little higher normal background radiation than some people might measure where they live. Now, frankly, I've been looking for an increase in that background radiation ever since Fukushima. I measure at the downspouts of my house, to see if maybe I'm collecting some Fukushima here in Northern Virginia, just south of Washington D.C. Now, so far, I've not been able to measure any noticeable increase in the beta, gamma, and X that I can measure. I don't have the technical capability to measure alpha. But so far, even though I've still got my normal persistent radon decay that I'm used to seeing, so far I think we've been lucky in our area. But I'm very much aware that in many areas of the country, they've already accumulated just as near to me as in Pennsylvania area. I've heard from people up there who are measuring increased background radiation that can only be attributed to the Fukushima incident.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I would ask all of you, for what it's worth, if all of you are taking precautions for radiation exposure. For example, the intake of iodine via seaweed or other foods rich in iodine, or increasing your potassium iodide intake. Are all of you participating that way?
I take iodine, and I definitely eat seaweed.
Okay.
I use a kelp product and also Perfect Food, which is a real good combination of greens, and I add the iodine to that.
Mm-hmm.
I take it as a supplement, but I'm probably not as good about doing it as I should be. I should just take it just like my morning daily dose of vitamin supplements, and don't. But I take a little bit every couple times a week. At best. I know I should do better, but I do what I do.
Okay, Susan.
Yes, we're taking it as supplements and trying to get the best sources of food that we can, and treating everyone at home. We do holistic medicine and meditation with the children, and try to keep not only our bodies but our minds clear. And I think of it holistically. It's not just I agree with what Karen was saying. It's not just the physical manifestation of the problems, but it's also our energetic intent toward things. And if we don't allow that into our realm of possibility, then it's likened to the placebo effect, I think. You can believe something wholeheartedly, and it will work just as well as the, pharmaceutical that you're taking.
Okay, and on that, just a little addition. You're right. It is a lifestyle change. And one of the reasons I asked all of you is that you already knew about the problem, but you've taken actions to protect your immune system. Okay, just as and I didn't necessarily want this to be just one topic, but on the issue that we had brought up earlier in our show with Dr. Rosen, is we were talking about detoxification and how few people are aware of what it's like to use foods that are detoxifying, or to do a program like a fast. I just got off one a little over a week ago. Every season, One other addition that I'd like to throw out there is that those of you that are interested in detoxification may consider clays. There's two types, bentonite and diatomaceous earth, that I recommend to patients. There is a mild chelating effect, so you can't do them forever. But they do have a drawing effect, and they help neutralize the positive charge in this radiation. So if anybody, like I said, there's some instructions along with this. If they're interested, to go to my website, accuton.com, and then I can email you a protocol with the information about taking clay or taking iodine for that matter.
Now, I do have diatomaceous earth, and I use that as well. I didn't know that you were supposed to... Well, I didn't know that there were any problems in long-term use, although I generally will miss a few days here and there. But what are the problems? Because it seems to be pretty good for pulling out toxins and things.
Well, you have to realize that this is as far as organic minerals go that are absorbing into the cells. Diatomaceous earth is made up of 79% silica. If you get a good quality one, first of all, you have to get a food grade. Do not get any other than a food grade, because the contaminants in other diatomaceous earth are many, let's just say, and you have to get the pure food grade type of diatomaceous earth. What we typically recommend is, in a general way, that either half to a full tablespoon is taken in water of the good quality diatomaceous earth, and you've got a lot of negative charge in that water, and you drink it before bed. It helps work with the sulfur metabolism and helps to neutralize some of the positive charges for iodine isotopes, for example, radioactive iodine isotopes. Although it may not take it out entirely, you diminish its negative effects on the thyroid. And also, when it gets into your system, it's got some other benefits that go along with it. When we talk about radiation detoxification, the obvious is that we do our best to prevent the negative effects of exposure before it happens, and that's why I'm wanting the panel to sort of chime in here to see if this is an important part of their lifestyle, because I myself take diatomaceous earth most nights, and as far as doing something, it's cheap, and it's generally clean water before bed. You have a high benefit to taking it.
Well, my wife tries to get me to drink this, stuff that kind of tastes like wet concrete every evening. It's a really nasty concoction that she puts together, but she tells me it's real healthy. So far, it hasn't killed me. So it's like everything else, I guess. If it doesn't kill you, it must make you stronger. And I believe that does have that bentonite clay in it that you mentioned earlier, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. Some kind of hemp stuff, although it doesn't give me a buzz. Darn it! But in any case, we try. All of us, I'm sure, have thought about this and scratched our heads and what can we do that is practical and reasonable. But one thing I can't do that frustrates me is I can't really ensure that the food I'm eating is not entirely free of all sorts of various contaminations. I mean, I do the things I can do. I buy from my little Korean market here locally that buys their produce from local providers and so forth. So I'm trying to eat close to where I live, rather than getting stuff that's been shipped halfway across the country. But how would one go about ensuring that the food they're eating isn't killing them? And I will caution the panel that we only have about a minute and a half here before I've got to play a quick bumper break to keep our recordings in sync. But this panel will continue for another half hour after the bumper. But we do have about a minute.
Okay, and don't forget to call Dr. Rosen. He'll be available. It's 6 o'clock Pacific time.
Well, I think that's where the attitude also has to come in, and growing as much food as you can. but we can't control the planes that fly overhead, the chemtrails, the geoengineering. It seems to me that if we can grow indoor gardens, but then I hate to not have my produce be kissed by the sun, so I think, or at least I'm hoping that as we move forward, we can really use our minds, our hearts, and the meditation. Suzanne, I think it's great. You meditate with your children. You'll have to tell us how you do that when you come back.
Okay, I will.
And I'll tell you, on that note, I am going to go ahead and ask the panel to please, take a deep breath, perhaps refresh your drinks. I'm going to play about a 4-minute bumper piece here. And to the audience, we will be back for another half hour of this roundtable right after these tunes. And we're back from our momentary pause. I know to the audience they probably considered that a terrible interruption, but we've been going at this all day, and we needed a little bit of a break, so we're happy that you're patient with us. Folks, we return to our august panel, and we have managed to add Am Rosen to the panel, so we now have Suzanne Posel, Am Rosen, our archive master Tim, of course Karen Tostado, Accutone Dean, and our friend Lark from Texas. And I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let you folks continue the discussion.
Well, I think because Dean has just a little bit of time left and Am is his partner, let's toss it to you, Dean, so that you can make the most of the few minutes that you have left, and then we'll turn Am on and we'll keep on going.
Thank you, Karen. Just to finish up, we're oftentimes in a place where we don't know the contamination of food. As mentioned earlier, we have means, however, to take in the best quality of food that we can obtain is going to have an organic label on it. In other words, we assume that there's less changes that have been done to the plant material, the soil, the fertilization process is overseen. But to make a little bit more of a clarification, there are foods that are used. For example, there's a very fine form of algae that can be taken as a supplement as a food support. If you're interested in that information, I can provide that for you if you'd like. Also, we have to be a little bit more clear on the issue of sprouting. A lot of what we are used to seeing sprouts in the store, the radish sprouts or alfalfa sprouts and so forth. This is a very nutrient-dense form of food and can be done fairly easily in the home. I've been doing this for several years, and it's something that I've just gotten in the habit of, and it's fairly easy to do. So I'm just making a plug for those two things. And also, just to finish what we were talking about before in regards to, checking for contamination, I think it's going to be a little bit more mainstream now that we're aware of what's coming down on us. We're not knowing how much and to what extent, but that these radiation detectors will become more part of our lifestyle. I do occasionally take one with me. It may look a little funny to some people, but I'm discreet, and I do make a point of testing my food stuff by using these radiation detectors. It is indeed a shame that we have to go to such extremes to be safe. However, I have a feeling that the tide will change and the mindset will change along with it, like what you were mentioning, Karen, along with Susan, about the piece of appreciating your food, blessing your food, meditating with the food, and preparing yourself for being nourished and not being afraid to be poisoned. Take into account those things, and we have the best mindset to prepare ourselves and also be available to the changes that are happening right now.
Very good, Dean. You have to leave us here in a few minutes.
I do, but I wanted to say thank you for your for everybody's participation. It's nice to connect with intelligent and caring people like yourself.
Thank you very much, Dean, for being part of this. Here's your chance. Any other last thoughts here? Tell everyone your website.
Oh, sure. Real quickly, to contact me, just go to my website, accutone.com. You'll see the radio show archives there that Dr. Rosen and I have with the state of mind quality of life. And also my clinic and my book is there as well, and my contact information. And Dr. Rosen will pick it up from here, and have a good rest of your panel show.
Thank you. Please email me that information. And Ann Rosen, it's all yours. What would you like to say here this afternoon?
So much to say. All right. We're dealing, of course, we're dealing with a very overloaded mentality. It's easy when you're working on numbers and figures and facts to say, hey, this is what will produce growth and yield and blah, blah, and most people that are doing this have no real sense of the body. So with one hand, you do have to be aware of all the things that you've been discussing in terms of food sources, contaminants, radiation. With the other hand, you have to move ahead to take some control over your body. Sometimes it's feast, sometimes it's famine. Sometimes it's time to party and deconstipate the spirit. Sometimes it's time to clean out and really bring the body into balance. Your body can and will adapt, but in and of itself, it doesn't know what to do. It's not running wild in nature. It's responding to the cueing signals of environment, the star rotation, the sun, the moon, the gravitational pulls of the seasons. You've domesticated it. You've placed it in a mind-generated field with refrigeration, mass transportation, mass communication. And the body can adapt, but it doesn't know what to do. Just like if you have an animal, you have to say, well, okay, this is what you're going to eat, and this is where you're going to sleep, and you have to train it, hopefully with love. The body needs a good master. It doesn't know what to do. The body does not respond to your intellectual conjecture. It responds to simple feelings. Like if you have a puppy, aren't you sweet, and you're petting it and stroking it, the animal responds to that. So we've invented all these things terribly out of balance and proportion. The question is, besides trying to avoid contaminants, becoming aware of that, becoming aware that a lot of people are in a position to make money and they don't really think it through as to the repercussions of their acts. How can you strengthen your body? How can you fortify it so that you can sustain yourself, have a better quality of life, and to some degree handle these kind of problems that are coming in from our food source and our air source, our water source? First of all, the immune system has to be kept strong, and the digestive system. The body responds to our feelings. We talk about gut emotions because no matter what you think or what you avoid thinking, everything you feel registers through the visceral organs. It creates tissue disposition. People will be exposed to different contaminants. Not everybody will respond the same way, because some bodies are genetically more together. Some bodies are in better shape. They're better nutritionalized. So a big part of, while we're handling all the nonsense that needs to be straightened out, is to keep yourself as healthy and as strong as you can. That just doesn't mean taking in stuff that isn't polluted. It means figuring out what is the input and output. If you're going to burn up energy physically, emotionally, or mentally, something has to pay for that expenditure. If you're running on willpower instead of the actual nutrients that fuel your physical vitality, well, it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're ripping off one metabolic system to force emphasis on another, and you'll create imbalances which will weaken you. So part of it is learning to gauge what parts of my body am I using? What organs and glands are being taxed? What do I need to keep up with the constant output that I'm demanding from my body. Just a few thoughts. I'd be happy to enumerate, but I think somebody else might like to jump in.
Well, those are good points. Lark, we haven't heard much from you.
Well, I'm interested in the people poisoning us and murdering us.
I'm not. I'm interested in eliminating them.
Well, that too. I've basically spent a lifetime discussing nourishment and nutrition, been actively involved in the debates. I realized back in, about 92 to 94, which is when the year that I had my last real job. I was the chef that opened the Dallas Symphony Center. I realized that I'd spent 20 years of my life unsuccessfully trying not to participate in the poisoning of my customers and my clients. Because that's in fact what I actually was doing. And, I've lamented that ever since. But the truth of the matter is that there are many of us today that are induced into participating actively in organized crime and racketeering. Because as I assert, and what I've been getting to the bottom of, is that socialism equals gangsterism equals slavery. And I've identified socialism from every single angle, from the right and from the left. I've looked at gangsterism, and I've identified it as human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, organ trafficking. It's freeloading. It's parasitism. And then I've looked at this new variant of socialism, which has come to the fore today, called communitarianism, the dictatorship of the community. And it's very disturbing to me. So yes, nutrition, health is very important. There's no doubt. I only wish that in the 20 plus years that I had spent in the quote unquote career that I personally was involved in, I could have made the difference that I would have liked. But I was unsuccessful. My nuclear family is dead today. All of them. And they were murdered by their doctors. And I know that they're running a criminal racket. I know for a fact. In fact, I would welcome an opportunity to actually discuss this in detail with anybody that would like to discuss it with me sometime.
Let's use that topic on the next marathon because, in my opinion, the number one killer of people worldwide is the current established medical practice.
I also believe that the United States military is completely controlled, and they too are induced into lives of organized crime. Also, the legal fraternity community, if you will, today. These people are nothing more than predators and racketeers. Every damn one of them. Every governor in this country is a syndicalist. Every big city mayor and even mid-sized town mayor is now a criminal. They're actively engaged in syndicalist organizations where they relinquish voluntarily their independence of thought, mind, and will to a collectivist body, which means the entire society has been Sovietized today. We have been Sovietized. This is extremely disturbing. And we even have a modern gulag system firmly in place. We have stormtroopers on our streets who've been brainwashed to become predators themselves. And the entire education system has been hijacked, academia too, by this thing called communitarianism. And so, forgive me for saying so, but I'm looking to actually discuss these things with people that actually want to discuss them. Because I'm damn mad, to be honest with you. I'm actually sick and tired of being surrounded by criminals. I mean criminals. Whether they realize it or not, unwittingly, so made useful idiots, makes no difference. They are, in fact, gangsters. And this is what I study and have been desperate to talk about. I've personally been speaking out on the internet, the radio channels. I've been involved locally for the past, since 2004. And I can tell you, it's very difficult to find very many allies to my cause. These things must be discussed, and so long as we do not even say this word, we are permitting this criminal activity to continue, because there's not nearly enough people to counter what I know to be the religio philosophy, which in fact undergirds communitarian law, which is the international law which has enslaved us all today.
Well, Lark, back in the old days, I used to belong to a foolish, frivolous club called Mensa, and I finally realized it, wasn't a whole lot of fun belonging to a group of nerds. So I started me a new group called the Don Quixote Club, and you just became a charter member, my friend.
Well, sign me up. Do we want to talk about the criminals, the people that are poisoning and murdering us? Because I'm down. I don't like these people.
Well, I tell you, I'd like to get down with one of them. The problem is, I have come to the realization after many years. Keep in mind, I've been in this battle since the late 1960s. I was part of that Hell No, I Won't Go group. And, the problem is, if you know their name, if you know the name Soros, and you know the name Rockefeller, and you know the name Diamond, I guarantee you they're not really the ones you'd like to see swinging from a lamppost. You're just looking at the middle managers. You ain't yet met the franchise owner.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we've absolutely been enslaved by this thing called currency and the corporation that we granted the monopoly over its issuance and their so-called credit. Now, that's just my point of view. But when I see what has happened to the so-called law today, it is so laughable what is termed law. I was a small business owner. I know I was one of those guys that had 12 people employed in a small business for a number of years. And so I've seen how that business model just was not going to work in this new technological age. And I've seen the big money go to the side of the people that want to control the information. So when you control the information flow and you control the currency, and simultaneously we've been dispossessed of our property and of our birthrights, then we have in fact become enslaved. And I'm angry about that, because the only thing I ever wanted out of life, Gary, was to have my little lean-to on my little piece of ground and leave as my legacy the little Garden of Eden that I wanted to leave the planet. I never did want to build giant castles and skyscrapers and poison everybody and everything around me.
Well, that's, if I may, that's begging the issue whether you can build such advanced structures without poisoning things, and you can. The problem is, what do you replace it with? It's been a madcap scramble in the past 100 years with technology. People don't know how to get their own food. It's trucked into cities. They don't know how to create the electricity they're so dependent on. And, people tend to believe whatever they're told. Law is legislated social conduct, but it's a question, but most of the legislators are up for sale. And so when things get bad enough and people have nothing to lose, they revolt. And if you have somebody that sees why a system is not working, then they put forth ideas that are better. That's what happened when this country was formed. But none of the original issues of human nature were resolved. So in one form or another, we keep becoming susceptible to them over again. When I was a kid, I thought anything in the store was okay for me to eat. Now, of course, I know better. But people are very frightened, and they have a lot invested. And if you're saying this isn't good, you've got to give them something constructive. I understand how rugged and intelligent you are, but most people don't have those resources. Don't even know how to think it through. They don't have they haven't developed the tools, and they're frightened. All they know is you take away something they need, they become hysterical. So they need to be educated. They need to understand why they're stuck the way they are and why they're so susceptible. From the bottom up to the top, it's the same story, just people have more access and more power. But the question isn't just what is it wrong, what do you want to replace it with? If that's not a constructive model, what is a constructive model? That's a show I'd like to talk about things on.
Well, good. I would too. I would also like to talk about remedies and solutions and indeed the constructive model of which you speak.
But now it's only fair that we go round the table and give Suzanne an opportunity to have a few words. Suzanne, please take the next couple minutes, and then I do need to reserve a couple minutes towards the end here for our archive master, Tim.
Absolutely. Doing all of this research and doing it 24 hours a day, and I think that maybe sometimes in the movement as well with other people in other venues and other talents that they use to contribute to this movement, once we get past a certain level of understanding, it's hard to remember that there's so many people. 75, 85, 95% of the people aren't even anywhere close to where we are. And I agree with you, Gary, on the point that if we can see them, that's not the guy. That's the puppet. As egregious as the Bilderbergs are and all these, the Club of Rome and all these factions and all these people that, David Rockefeller and Bill and Melinda Gates but if you can see them, if you know their name, that's not who we're dealing with. Those are the guys who are disseminating the orders. The guys that we've never seen, the families that we have no idea, the names that we've never heard, those are the people that are actually at the top of this pyramid, at the way top of this pyramid. And that's what we need to get rid of. Their lackeys are lackeys, and they will go wherever they are made to feel safe and given promises that they'll be okay in the end. Those people, they'll just fall in line with whatever comes along. And some of them, will have to be jailed, obviously, to get them to stop, because some people just don't know how to stop. It's just in their blood. It's in their mental makeup to just be either useful idiots or terrorists. But we need to keep having conversations on every level of this, in every venue that we are able to have conversations or put out information on the internet or radio shows or YouTube or wherever we can put out the information, because at all levels, everyone needs to understand. But for me personally, over the last couple of weeks, I've come to realize that one of the biggest problems is that we don't even understand what it is what this whole thing is and what the nature of reality is. And we don't understand our interconnectedness, and we don't understand the spookiness that goes on, that we're told, oh, don't worry about it, or we're given a label, it's a ghost, it's this or that and the other. And it's mocked in movies and in books and television shows. But these are real events that occur across the board. Every single person has had at least one moment where these things have happened, and we don't discuss the nature of reality, how we're all interconnected, how what the power of belief actually is, and how they use that against us. And I think that on these base levels, if we start to understand these things, then what they do has no power. It has no control over us, because we realize that everything that we have in our life, in our personal experience, is something that we want to experience. And if you want to place a value judgment on it, that's fine. You can say, I don't like this, or I do like this. But everything that we're experiencing because we wanted to experience that. And at that level, we have to take personal responsibility. And then at that level, we have to do something like what I tell my kids, which is, now that you know better, you have a responsibility to do better. And if you don't, then you're doing something that you know is not right. And that is not cool. So I think that when we're speaking to the audience, when I write my articles or when I speak to my audience on the radio, I always keep in mind that probably the majority of them are not as versed as I am. And I need to keep rehashing things that I think maybe are repetitive, but everyone comes to the realization they wake up in their own time, in their own way. Nobody forces you to wake up. You see something and a light turns on and you go, oh my God, okay, the fiat is fake. Okay, the food is irradiated. Okay, the GMOs are causing cancer. Okay, what am I going to do about this? So that's what I think.
On that note, we do what we think is probably going to do a difference. We hope that what we're doing is going to make a difference, but quite often with my own broadcasts, I feel like I'm really preaching to the choir. Am I really opening up any new minds, or am I just talking to the folks who already accept the message and they're listening to me because I'm echoing their thoughts? But on that note, I do need to make a little bit of time here for Tim, our archive master, because I believe he did have a point he wanted to make, and we are getting close to the end of this session, and I want to make sure that there's at least a minute and a half or so at the end there where I can get around the table and get everybody to do some blatant self-promotion. So, Tim, I understand you had a message you wanted to get out there, sir. The floor is yours.
Yeah, first, I thought I should say, in case I end up breaking out laughing, and everybody wonders why, is earlier on the chat of a program called Everybody, a guy that goes by the name Yeti. I told him before, well, I'm on the UWS-201304q-RoundTable now, and he said, well, have fun getting round the table. Anyway, the thing I had to tell about that would have went along with the food subject before is that I thought I would tell about for sure for those who haven't gotten prepared yet. That something from Backyard Liberty that the man of Backyard Liberty and a friend of his came up with for to help people survive when things really get bad is the system where it takes very little work and very little water. It's that's made for anyone to be able to put together. That it takes a couple hours for anyone to be able to put together. And it has water, the part where there's water where the vegetables, fruits and vegetables, are grown, and then there's another part, where you have fish, and then it keeps recycling. Yeah, aquaponics. It keeps recycling, and then from the fish's waste, then it helps wherever the word is, fertilize the plants without without fertilizer like Roundup and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought that'd be since because of how when I passed Karen the direct link to it on Skype that it didn't come up for her. That's where I would have to tell everybody to go to it from runs.com and it's the one that says that the first big bold letters in bold say Obama didn't expect this top secret information would leak, and you click on that and it's got a picture of Obama on it, and everybody just click on that and go to it. So I thought that was something important to get out.
I'm going to ask the panel to please stand by for just a moment while I cycle a break here. Okay, I'm sorry for that, but we were right at the half hour, and I had to put a little bit of bumper in there so that our current speaker Tim would know where to do the splicing on the recording. But in any case, Tim, please do go ahead and finish up your arguments, and then I do want to go around the table and let everybody do just a little bit of blatant self-promotion.
Well, I guess there wasn't anything else that I had to think of, talking about or telling about. I just hope I didn't do too bad at getting everything out. Because whenever I know I only have so much time and I have to kind of, probably have to kind of rush it a bit, then then I do have a little, trouble getting everything out the best. So I hope I did, okay there.
It's not a problem. Actually, I'm very familiar with the technology you're discussing, and anybody who might be interested, if you go to YouTube and search on aquaponics, you'll find a number of really great videos from amateurs that have set up such systems. They are closed-loop systems that are reported to be pretty much self-supporting. I mean, all you got to do is toss in a little fish food every once in a while to keep the fish making poop, which is recycled hydroponics that allow you to grow vegetables in a fairly confined space very efficiently. And that there are people out there who swear by this technology. I've not experimented with it myself, but I certainly admire those who do. Now, as we come into the close,
I just thought of something else.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
And when it comes to that, it came to my mind that, of course, when it comes to the thing about talking about Fukushima before, about the radiation that we're getting here from it, a person that and another thing, a person does need to find a way to protect the protect the food being grown in that from the radiation, and also another thing I don't remember the man saying on that video about that kind of system is also making sure that that they're not GMO seeds that you're using to grow fruits and vegetables in that kind of system.
Alrighty, and as we come into the close of our round table for today, I'm going to go round the table. Suzanne Purcell, just a quick 30-second pitch on who you are and what you're all about and where people can find out more about what you're doing.
I'm Suzanne Purcell. My website is occupycorporatism.com. Like I mentioned on the marathon, we're going through a little bit of a change, but the website will be up and live on Monday, and I'll have fresh news and putting my archives in over 1,200 articles by hand, but the website is occupycorporatism.com. I also have a radio show on American Freedom Radio, the Region 10 Report, 1 to 3 Pacific Time, that's 3 to 5 Central Time. And I also work with Vinnie Eastwood on the realguerrillamedia.com, and we have a group of wonderful people who are affecting change, who are not co-opted, and who are not into sensationalism, trying to scare you, just trying to get good quality information out, and that's what I do.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Am Rosen, I tell you, you and Dr. Dean, I swear, you got to lobby Karen, see if maybe we can't set aside an hour for you guys, because, a half hour just is not nearly enough for you guys to really deliver your message.
Very kind of you, sir.
But please, 30 seconds, blatant self-promotion, tell people just who the heck you are, what you're all about, and where they can find out more.
Well, if you want, first of all, my website is www.lifegame.com. There is a bio page there with a few slogans and a few things about myself if you want to get a sense of me. There's books and recordings, some sample excerpts, audible and written, from my 2 most recent books. I really invite you to look at the process. Just consider the first 2 of the 5 steps in it. You'll find it on the accordion section of my homepage. My job is to facilitate you, and I have, without guessing, happy to show to you, chapter and verse, from the molecular level on up, the understanding of exactly how human consciousness is developed, why we're stuck the way we are, and how to break the grip. I want to see you secure, comfortable, and clear. You do what you want with it, but right now you're not. Most people are stuck, and that's why they're so susceptible to all the marketing forces. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much, Am Rosen. And now, from Texas, just an American, Lark. I tell you, it sounded like you were just about to get off on a roll as we started this round table, and I got to think maybe somebody put a plate of raw meat in front of you, and that's what got you going. But please, in a quick 30-second executive summary, just who the heck is Lark in Texas, and where can we find out more about what you've got to say?
Well, I'm a person that is interested in counter economics, fact, I recommend you look it up. Counter-economics. I'm a person that's interested in autarky. Again, look it up. AUTARKY. I'm a crime fighter. I suggest that anybody hearing the sound of my voice right now, turn off your televisions and never, ever turn it back on. Turn off the TV. Learn to become self-sufficient. It's not difficult to do. And learn who it is that is meaning to poison and to murder you. And you'll find out if you spend any time at all at my website entitled Just an American, larkintexas.blogspot.com. And if you're in the media biz, invite me onto your program sometime, because I have a lot to say. And many people need to be repeating a few of the words that I have uncovered. None of them are my own. But they must be said out loud, because we must identify who means to murder us.
All righty. That's a very powerful message. How does that raw meat taste, Lark?
I don't eat a whole lot of meat. I simply can't afford it.
Now, you know I'm just pulling your leg, don't you?
I know that.
And our archive master, Tim, we've got about a minute and a half here where we can get our final say-sos in. So, Tim, please take 30 seconds. Introduce yourself, and if you do have any websites or anything that you'd like to promote, this is your opportunity to do so, sir.
Well, I do have a website that I get some things changed on, and still haven't. Things have been so busy with the recording stuff that I've to get to it, and I don't know about wanting to put it out yet until I get those things done. I think I should get to it, doing that soon, after getting some more VHS tapes done to DVD for the same lady who gave me more to do. But other than that, there's nothing else that I can think of.
Not a problem. And now, last but not least, certainly our den mother, the organizer of the marathon, Karen Quintestato. Now, you notice I did reserve a little bit more than 30 seconds for you to give your final message of the day.
Well, thank you very much, Gary. Thank you to all the listeners. And remember, the bottom line with United We Strike is about empowering ourselves, not the false systems of government, not the inequality, not the banksters. As a matter of fact, I would like this time to remind everyone that Monday is April 15th. Look online yourself. Do what you can to educate yourself. But don't become an individual target, because they are so fond of that. It's why using our greater numbers and coming together on the 15th, supporting ourselves, supporting small local businesses, and not supporting Walmart, not supporting the big box stores, not giving them any profit, will have an effect. And I would like to read now this so that you can maybe think of this. These words kind of poured through me the other day. But I'd like folks to think about this. Is this our legacy? What if we were dreaming, programmed from the start, through lies and endless scheming, to keep us from our heart? What if our best knowing, granted us through birth, was stolen through our growing, robbing us of worth? What if the dream became the nightmare when we opened up our eyes, a war-torn, ugly frightmare? Would we not then realize that all of this huge pack of lies only works when we do, yet we're compartmentalized and haven't got a clue? But what if we could take a break and step back from the cliff? What if, for our children's sake, we gave the truth a whiff? Our earth and skies are crying for us to stop the plunder, our sons and daughters dying, and all are going under. But the choice of how to live and die belongs to you and me. Listen to our children cry. Is this our legacy? What if we could be as strong as the hero in our heart? And what we've wanted all along was just a brand new start. The 15th is coming. Let it be the day We step back together, yet do it our way. For all of our lives are worth more than their lives. So please consider the ramifications of allowing the system to continue to compartmentalize us into working against ourselves. Understand that our hearts have much power, much energy, and again, now at the risk of just being totally of just doing my own thing here, I'd also like to ask you then to close your eyes for just a second and to think about these words. I will be a source of certainty within the sea of confusion. I'll stand tall. The waves won't make me fall. I've seen through it all. It's an illusion. We were all meant to be living life abundantly, exploring all our majesty, and when enough of us know it, we are free. We are free. And that's the message of United We Strike. Please take it to heart. Make it your day as well. Step back from the cliff. Thank you very much to all of our guests. Thank you to Rick Margetts coming in and stepping in again, helping us out. Thank you for Detlef. Thank you for Alan from OYM. Thank you, A.M. Rosen. Thank you, Dr. Dean Lloyd. Thank you, Larkin, Texas. Suzanne Cosell. Thank you, Tim. Gary, thank you. You've been here all day as well. I really appreciate it. And remember, folks, don't buy, don't comply, ask why. And the second Saturday of every month, tune into the marathon and help us support each other.
All righty, and to our guest panel, that's it, folks. You can have a good night. But to the audience, don't you go away, because believe it or not, there's still about another hour of programming coming from United We Strike. So you all stay tuned. I'm going to play a little bit of music as I let our guests exit gracefully. Take care now.